Mr. President, let me start off by thanking you. I wasn't here for all of it, but I did listen to a lot of it. And I guess in light of the fact that it's Palm Sunday, there were a number of biblical invocations throughout the course of the day. So out of respect to everyone's faith, let me express my gratitude and appreciation for people being here so we could do the people's business. By extension, let me thank Senator DeFrancisco in particular and Senator Mike Gianaris for being gentlemen, colleagues, and making sure that our operation here could run smoothly. Because we all know there can be a lot of bumps in the road, and when people are willing to work together, we can get things done, even if it takes extra time. There are a number of things that I'd like to talk about. I want to start with the people who actually work here. I want to thank Senator Stewart Cousins for, as I say, always being a good person to deal with, and for representing her competence ably and with passion and dedication. And that's something I'll always inherently respect. Let me extend my deep appreciation to Senator Klein for being a gentleman, for being a leader, being a good colleague, and for being someone who always, just when I think I know him, comes up with something new. He'll never be accused of being, sitting or resting on his laurels in terms of what his advocacy is. And by extension, while Jeff mentioned all of his staff, I just want to single out Dana as someone who's been extraordinarily terrific to deal with here. In our own chamber, I want to thank Lisa. I want to thank everyone at the desk for also helping make sure that things run smoothly. You can tell we're getting to the end of the bottom of the hourglass when I call Lisa like 35 times to find out what's going on, who's speaking, and all those different things. Speaker Hasty is a passionate advocate for his district, for the people of the state of New York, for his conference, and golly, he's got a very diverse conference. You all know that. You have 107 members, even if they were all the same. Imagine if there were 107 Kevin Parkers, that would still be a challenge. All right, the question is going to be, you want 107 Parkers or 107 Riveras? That's the course, toss of the coin. But he, Carl has proven himself to be a gentleman. We don't agree. We don't agree on a lot of things, and that's fine. And that's part of the process. And I do want to thank all of those individuals, but I also want to thank the governor for his stick-to-itiveness, among other things. Senators Gallivan, Senator Young, Senator Lanza can all attest to the fact of how much time the governor personally invested in meeting with our members, in meeting with the IDC, in meeting with the Assembly Democrats on an issue that was very important to a lot of people, commonly known as raise the age. And by the way, I'm just giving my own opinion on this. Parenthetically, we'll never get credit for this, and maybe we shouldn't. But I just said to Senator Marcelino, if I went to a street corner on my district and interviewed 100 people and said, well, what do you think about raise the age? 98 or 99 of them are not even going to know what it is. They just don't. They don't. And yet the time and effort and the investment in talking about a 16-year-old, I come at it from an angle that always incorporates my friend. I'm going to never apologize for this. It's an important public policy issue. But I think, okay, what makes that 16-year-old go out and commit a crime? And what if it's a heinous crime? Because the first thing I think about is the victim. I'm never going to walk away from the idea that I'm going to think about the victim first and then the perpetrator of the crime thereafter. And I'm not suggesting that that makes me unique, but when we grapple with these issues, that's part of the deliberations that we get involved in, and frankly, we should. Senator Klein can attest to this. About 5 months ago, we were meeting in the governor's office in the city, at which time I said that this would be an extraordinarily contentious issue for the people in our conference, but I gave my word that we would sit down and try and work out some type of compromise. And obviously that has happened in the context of an overall budget, but that's, ladies and gentlemen, that's one thing in an entire budget. So I want to thank the governor on that. Senators Akshar, DeFrancisco, Amador, and Senator Hannan, all of whom had meetings with the governor on deeply important public policy issues that the public will not understand. that we actually go in and we sit down, hash things out back and forth. Workers' compensation. How do you protect workers? How do you protect employers so that they can actually have workers? How do we advance a system that actually works and inures to everyone's benefit? So, from our standpoint, I don't want to have the dialogue start and end with Raise the Age. I want to talk about jobs. And the notion that we're preserving middle-class tax cuts, okay, I'm going to take credit for that. But we shouldn't have to preserve anything. That shouldn't even be a discussion. That's what the law was already. And we're talking about the middle class. We're not talking about people who, yes, pun intended, who are uber wealthy. We're talking about real people. So your advocacy and our advocacy in that regard, frankly, is no different. Just how do we get to the finish line? So I want to talk about jobs. I want to talk about economic development. I want to follow on the lead of Senator Hannan and Senator O'Mara on clean water. That's a really, really good thing for the people of the state of New York, and we got it done. So when I look at the checklist of things that got done, workers' compensation, yes. Uber, yes. College affordability, yes. Chances to relieve property taxes at the local level, yes. Clean water, yes. Rejecting hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes and fees. All of you are seasoned veterans. We could pass a millionaire's tax and no one will know. But when we do tell somebody they have to pay another $50 to get their title reissued at DMV, that's what they remember. So we rejected the Amazon tax because that works for our constituents. We rejected all those excessive fees at DMV. And that is hundreds of millions of dollars it saves taxpayers money across the state of New York. So sometimes we do things that are inure to the benefit of our constituents affirmatively, and sometimes we do things that help them by rejecting things that are on the table. I'm going to use Senator Golden as an example. In the world of compromise, you fashion things, you put them out there, you fight, you negotiate, and at the end of the day, you try and come up with something that works for real people. Senator Golden's leadership is the reason we have a 3/4 disability for police in the state of New York. And you know what? That really matters. We all watch the TV shows. I watch them. I'm a freak for Blue Bloods and stuff like that. But when a cop gets hurt in the line of duty, what the hell are we having a debate for about whether or not this person should get a 3/4 disability? That's something that should have been done a long time ago. So props and kudos to my colleague. And by the way, Senator Golden wanted other things in the budget, and he didn't get them. And I know you're all shocked by that, because I know everyone else in the room got every single thing that they wanted in the budget. But I look at my new colleagues, Senator Phillips, Senator Helmings, Senator Jacobs, Senator Tedisco, all who have diverse backgrounds. So when we talk about shared services, which the public doesn't understand, it's good to have a former mayor, a former supervisor, a former clerk, and a gentleman who has over 40 years in government experience to help bring input and education and knowledge to the process. And I am repetitive on some of these things because I want to have the public understand the input that we get from our members. I'm looking at my good friend and colleague over there, George Amador. I've said it before, I'll say it again. He's a businessman, he's a home builder. So if I'm going to talk to somebody about workers' comp, that's where I'm going to go. Go to the people who actually know. Carl Marcelino, former teacher, former school board member, now chair of the Education Committee. There's going to be criticism of our education budget. Because there's going to be groups of people who say, it's not enough. We're putting over $1 billion of new money into education. And if we put in $1.8 billion and we walked in with cash, there are still people who are going to complain. If every other part of the budget got the same amount of money that education did, they would be euphoric. Euphoric. If we said to the direct care workers, I'm sorry, for the next 5 years, the only thing we could do is get you what we get for elementary and secondary education, they'd be dancing in the streets. You all know that. So when we talk about what we do for education, I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican, a member of the IDC, Assembly or Senate, don't apologize. And I keep saying that because we are making investments, and this is not easy. All of you know that. Property tax relief, we adhere to a spending cap again for the 7th year in a row, which is good for the property taxpayers in the state of New York. I wish we had a spending cap, statutorily enacted at the state level. And with no disrespect to my colleagues from the city of New York, I wish we had a property tax cap in the city of New York, because it works all across the rest of the state. There's no reason why it can't work properly in the city of New York. Senator Lanza has had that bill for a number of years, but that's going to be part of our ongoing debate. So where do we go from here? To me, when we talk about all these things, we talk about aid to localities and ALPHA and TED. We have all these acronyms, and again, the public doesn't understand what any of this stuff is. It's our job to educate them. So to me, I'm thinking, all right, if we're talking about healthcare, what does it mean to my mother? We're talking about education, what does it mean to Terrence Murphy's kid? We're talking about higher education, what does it mean to Andrew Lanza's daughter, who's now in college? That's the prism that we look through, and that's the prism that we should look through. But I'm going to say Senator Stewart Cousins talked about being progressive. And she talked about how the Democrats could have been united. I'm going to suggest that the Democrats are united, because I watched every vote on every budget bill that came before this House. And virtually every person in this room voted yes. So that must mean we're doing something right. If we can get people of disparate interests and backgrounds to support a wide variety of things that they may not always like, that suggests to me that people are united. So when people talk about being progressive, I want to be progressive by creating jobs. I want to be progressive by making an economic development structure, whether it's in the Finger Lake region or up in Saratoga or out in western New York or the Hudson Valley or out in Gallivan's territory, which encompasses half the world. I'd like to make sure that we have a regulatory environment where people can actually create jobs. Progressive means creating jobs, generating revenue for the state of New York, so that when people want to fund programs, that they have the opportunity to do so. So I'm going to close on this. There are people here on all sides. Senator Stewart Cousins spoke about her staff. Senator Klein spoke about his staff. I want to thank everybody that works in government. I want to thank everybody that works for the New York State Senate and for the New York State Assembly, regardless of your political persuasion. I want to desperately thank the people in my own office, Peter Mooney standing over there, Robin Mueller, Sidney Gross, directly in our office, because they have my back 24/7, and that enables me to do things that gets some of the stuff done here. From, I don't know, Scott Reef, our communications office, Joe Conway, who's over here, I'm sure, hiding from somewhere from, he's actually putting together the mailings on the budget already, which will be going out quickly. But we have a crack staff. I want to thank Beth Garvey in our counsel's office, and I'm going to give a final shout out to a guy who I've always respected and have great affection for, and this is his first real run-through. And I'm going to close on this because I think this is representative of the quality of work that can get done in the state of New York. These people are exhausted because they're doing public service and public policy, and I just want to particularly thank Sean McKinnon as the secretary to the Finance Committee, and he and his team, but he in particular, did an outstanding job by properly negotiating, by being a person of integrity, and by representing the people of the state of New York. And he was able to do so under the guidance and tutelage of our expert, tireless chairwoman of the Senate Finance Committee, Senator Kathy Young. Give her a round of applause, for God's sakes. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, I know the public has this thing. I'm just going to explain this. The public has this thing that somehow we're all going on international trips. I'm personally going on a space trip out to the universe. I wish everyone respite and relaxation, but I know this. While one person may not be in their district, there are emails, there are phone calls, there are mailers, there's different parts of the budget you're going to be explaining to everybody. I congratulate all of you and thank you for the fact that you are all public servants. Mr. President, thank you for your time.
Senator Flanagan.